The first segment of the Hot 7 Nightly News is brought to you by Flow.
Tonight, the St. Lucia National Trust calls on government to clean house and ensure that Cabot follows through with its legal obligations. The island's Prime Minister wants reconciliation between the U.S. and Cuba, calling for an end to the embargo. And another St. Lucian life is lost to gun violence. The details of these stories and more coming up.
This is the Hot 7 Nightly News with Lovelace and Amy Joseph.
Good night. It is Monday, the 27th of September 2021. Welcome to the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. I'm Lovely St. Amy Joseph. Thank you for joining us. The St. Lucia National Trust has listed a myriad of concerns following what it says is the receipt of disturbing images of works being undertaken by Cabot St. Lucia along the coastline and the Queen's Chain. Last week, the Development Control Authority, DCA, took action to stop the unauthorized activity on Casabah Beach. The Trust is now calling on the government of St. Lucia and other relevant agencies to get their act together to ensure that Cabot continues to follow through with its legal obligations. Genevieve Gonzague reports.
Images have been circulating on social media of works being done by Cabot St. Lucia. The pictures depict heavy equipment on the Queen's Chain and along the coastline of the beaches at Casabah. Following much outrage, the Development Control Authority ordered that all works in the area cease. Cabot, in response, maintains that what was being done was simply a cleanup of the area. The St. Lucia National Trust, the body entrusted with the patrimony of the island, says there are still many concerns when it comes to the activity that took place on the beach, in addition to many other questions which go back to the original Cabot project. Chair of the SLNT, Alison King, says the Trust has called on the government, its agencies, and the developer to demonstrate transparency and engage in meaningful consultation to ensure that the project is not only consistently fulfilling the required legal obligations, but also adhering to principles of best practices for sustainable development and climate change resilience.
We are concerned that the appropriate approvals for these works have not been applied for. The studies to make sure that environmental and social impacts of these works are mitigated have not been done. If they are permitted to continue and to be made part of the Cabot development, it means that they compromise continued access by St. Lucians to these spaces that we believe should continue to be in the public domain.
King explains that the Trust believes that the scale and scope of works that Cabot St. Lucia has pressed on with in recent months, particularly within the Queen's Chain, are outside the scope of the approvals that were granted. She says these works are already creating unacceptable negative impacts along the coast. The Trust, therefore, is again urging that the government take immediate action to halt these works and thoroughly review the developers' proposals, permissions, and the needs of the wider community.
We are hopeful that the Ministry of Planning and the Development Control Authority will do the right thing so that at the end of the day, access is not compromised by the public. Access by the public, I should say, is not compromised by the development. And we end up with a Cabot development that is compatible with what we believe should be the continuation of social and environmental and protection of environmental and social rights.
While the Cabot development continues full speed ahead, has there been any recent efforts to ensure that the developer and the safekeepers of the island's history meet and are on the same page?
We haven't tried to speak to Cabot directly. I don't believe Cabot is that interested in engaging with the National Trust directly. So we engage with the Development Control Authority.
Cabot St. Lucia, for its part, says that as part of its corporate social responsibility, it has been contributing to the community in which it operates in many ways, including the improvement of some of the roads in the Cap Estate area. The organization underscores that the Cabot development and all its associated activities will continue to be undertaken with a deep sense of respect for the environment and the cultural significance of the area for fence-lined and national communities. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
Thank you, Genevieve. Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre, in his address to the United Nations General Assembly, has called for a repeal of the economic embargo placed on Cuba by the United States of America. Prime Minister Pierre said that Cuba is integral to the overall development of the Caribbean region, and restrictions placed on the country stifles the development of St. Lucia as well. The Prime Minister urged diplomatic reconciliation between the two countries. Karim Nelson reports.
The development of St. Lucia will continue to be compromised as long as the development of our sister nation of Cuba continues to be frustrated by global political considerations.
Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre, in his address to the United Nations General Assembly, took a bold stance, standing in solidarity with Cuba and encouraging an end to the economic embargo imposed on the country. He noted that given Cuba's track record in health, education, sports, and social development in the region, the normalization of relations with Cuba will lead to the advancement of development in the Caribbean. He called for the revisiting of diplomatic reconciliation between the two countries and said that a normalization of relations between them would be a momentous occasion.
St. Lucia encourages a revisiting of the chapter in history not too long ago, where diplomatic reconciliation had commenced between the United States of America and the Republic of Cuba under the Obama-Biden administration. In fact, then Vice President Biden was the chief envoy of the United States to Cuba, and it would be a signal achievement if, as president of the Biden-Harris administration, he were to bring his work on Cuba to its logical conclusion with the normalization of relations.
Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre took time to recognize Cuba for being immensely instrumental in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking to the Caribbean integration agenda, Pierre said that the economic embargo placed on Cuba also hinders the development of countries in the region.
Cuba continues to punch above its weight with its humanitarian efforts, playing its part in the global COVID-19 response despite its disadvantaged position in the international community. St. Lucia joins CARICOM and the global community in renewing calls for the United States to normalize its relations with Cuba and for the abolition of the existing embargo, which only serves as a hindrance to economic growth in Cuba and an obstacle to realizing full regional economic integration in the Caribbean.
He said that both the development of St. Lucia and the betterment of the lives of people of Cuba are important, and St. Lucia will continue to renew calls for the removal of the economic embargo. Reporting for the Hot 7 Nightly News, I am Karim Nelson.
Thank you, Genevieve. 31-year-old Kingsley Joseph is the island's latest homicide victim. During what was supposed to be the beginning of curfew, which would end at 4 a.m. Monday, Joseph was shot multiple times in Mont Sepa Grocery at approximately 7 p.m. Emergency personnel from the Grocery Fire Service responded to the incident. Fire Service spokesperson Stacey Joseph gave the details of the call placed for assistance for the island's latest homicide.
The information received stated that there was an alleged shooting incident at Mont Sepa in Grand Riviere, Groseilliers. The emergency crew found on scene a male individual lying on the ground in the presence of police officers. An assessment of the patient revealed that he sustained several penetrating wounds on his body. Due to the obvious signs of death, the scene was left in the care of the police.
Kingsley Joseph was a resident of Marcia Castries. Investigations into the shooting death of the 31-year-old are ongoing. This is the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Still to come, a COVID-19 survivor urges the rest of St. Lucia to get vaccinated. Inclusive growth is at the center of the Tourism Minister's Tourism Day speech, and the Red Tie Gala encourages all to be like Bo. That and more after the break.
The first segment of the Hot 7 Nightly News was brought to you by Flow.